Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party and my buddy Rhett. We're gonna do some coding today. I made since I had more time. Um, I'm I cracked her one of these nuts. I don't know what they're called, but there's a little crack. She can't actually cut these nuts herself with her beak. Her beak's just not big enough. But she does like this kind of nut, and if I put a crack in it for her, then she can usually get it open. I usually crack it a little bit more than this, so it'll be interesting to see if this keeps her busy for a while. But here you go, Rhett. So today is Juneteenth. So we get today off. I work as a contractor for the state of Georgia. Kind of hoping to become a full-time employee at some point. I think these state positions might be the last surviving sort of full-time traditional full-time positions as we sort of change gears in this country to sort of a new way of functioning. Um, I like everybody else. I think I'm just like trying to understand what is happening. Um, this job that I have right now, like I quit my previous job. I was working for the Defense Logistics Agency, and I just like up and quit. And I don't even really know why. I think I might have been sort of part of like some kind of system that was just sort of feeding, hey, you should quit, you should quit, you should quit. And then one day I just like got all mad and quit. And I was just like, let's see. Oh, looks like right, just got rid of it. You don't want that? Um, and then so I was just like, that's it. I quit, and it was a really good paying job, so it was kind of dumb. I wonder though today, like with all the federal cutbacks, if I would have been let go anyways. I was working for a company that she just threw it down again. I was working for a company that was a middleman, or I was working for a company that was fighting for its contract at renewal, and they were like their their code was really really good, and then you could just tell it had like gone through years and years of just really poor maintenance. And then the contract was up, and so then they brought in a bunch of really good people to sort of get the code up to speed and make everything work again, and move everything. They were on Angular JS, and we moved it to Angular 2 plus, and I believe it was Angular 12, maybe 13 we ended up on. Um, and then you could just tell the second that they won the contract that they were like pushing off their high end contractors to bring in like full time employees that were struggling in other parts of the company. So I don't know. I don't know why, but I just quit. But what was crazy was that I've never, well, that's not true. Most of my career, there has not been an issue finding a new job. Um, and sometimes it was harder than others and all that, but this time I had like this incredibly like literally not a single real interview, face to face, past the recruiter interview in 6 solid months. So I finally got one face to face interview. And so, I was pretty serious about it. And so I went in and I did the interview and I got the job. And it was just like, man, one for one in 6 months. Had I not gotten that job, I probably wouldn't have been able to, like, it probably would have been another 6 months before I even got another interview. But I was actually just about to just completely give up on trying to find a new job and just focus on my wife's business. And so I was right there on the edge of just being like all in on her business and just trying to do that. But fortunately, I found this job. But now it does feel like the end of an era. I don't know if you've ever read the book The Grapes of Wrath, but like in The Grapes of Wrath, he describes sort of the end of a previous era where most people, I think, were sort of most people and families and groups and all that were sort of just like little mini sub businesses of their own, and they were fairly self sufficient. And then kind of jobs became a thing, and then you could get a job and you could live off of the job, and it was like very difficult. And then the people, the main characters of the Great Wrath, were probably like some of the best of the best of the best of people who were self-sufficient and capable of doing everything themselves, and they just could not. Um, they could no longer make it, because just the way Americans and American work changed so dramatically that they just couldn't function the way they were functioning. And I feel like we're in that sort of situation again. And I'm, like, just so the world is just so different. So like I remember like in the 1980s in my town, we had three mom and pop restaurants, and then like a McDonald's opened up in the area. And so we had one fast food restaurant and three mom and pop restaurants. And I remember the three mom and pop restaurants just slowly degraded. And now I think about it, it was just like, yeah, that McDonald's probably took like 20 to 30% of their business. And there wasn't enough business for the three mom and pop places to stay. But one of them didn't just go out of business, they all fought it out with each other and weakened each other until one of them finally died off, and then the other two could survive. Well, now, like if you were to draw a circle, 5 mile radius around me, there might be maybe two or three mom and pop restaurants, and one of them has been around since the 1950s. And but there's probably 100 fast food places. So like the whole system just flipped on itself. Now, like and every once in a while now we're getting like a new mom and pop restaurant, and every time they thrive, they do really really well, and they're just taking business from all those fast food restaurants, and they're just destroying each other. And I think that's happening throughout our entire economy. And I just think like there was a tremendous amount of our economy that was, especially the top end of our economy, the wealthy people, that were basically surviving on information advantages. I remember, I think it was like 1997, 1998. I decided to dabble in gold options, buying and selling gold options, and puts. And so there was this group that was in Chicago, and I put $5,000 into an account, and I would go check the website every day. It kind of looked like a spreadsheet, and it would have what the prices of all the different, uh, like, oh, October gold is blah blah blah, a contract for 100 ounces of October gold. And so I would watch that very carefully. And my kind of idea was, is I'm going to win a little and lose a little, but at some point there would be some huge market shift, because that would happen every once in a while in gold. It would go up $100 or whatever, and one of those contracts would be worth a fortune. And at that point, I would be able to like make a bunch of profit on that. So I would just try to stay even, and then when something big happened. Well, the thing was that I would call this guy at like 9 in the morning, and I would say, hey, I would look at the contract rates, and I would say I want to buy XYZ, and he would just chill until noon, and then he would go to the market, and then he would buy. If the price went down, he would buy at the lower price and then resell it to me at the higher price, at the price that I told him I wanted to buy. If the price went up, he'd say, I couldn't buy it, you know. So he was sort of guaranteeing, he was using his information advantage to guarantee that he made money by either, if the price dropped, selling it to me at the price that I asked for, or if the price went up, saying, yeah, we couldn't find one. And then years later, I interviewed for this company, which their name, I believe their ICE was the name of it, which has got a different meaning now, but I think it was International or Intercontinental Exchange or something like that. And when I was doing the interview process, it was like one of the funniest interviews I ever had, because this guy, he had like this name that was like a very memorable name. I'll never forget it. But he was talking to me, and he's just like, "You seem like a really good guy. You do. You seem really good, and you seem like you would do a lot of good work for us. But you're just too stupid. You're just not smart enough. Everybody else is like really, really smart here, and you'll come here and you'll be miserable and you'll be picked on." And I thought he was such a jerk. But then a couple years later, I did get a job at a place where everybody was crazy smart. Like they would be like, "Okay, so your password is the your XYZ password with your other password, you had two different passwords, and this was actually a combination of the two, and plus the day of in the Fibonacci sequence that corresponds with the day of the month. So like, and they could all just snap all this out. Like they knew like, oh, okay, today's 28th, so the 28th Fibonacci sequence value, right? And that place was just absolutely miserable because like everything you did just required massive amounts of intelligence that was beyond me. So I was actually, I think this guy ended up doing me a huge favor. He was just being super honest, and sometimes being super honest makes you the bad guy. But he ended up being the good guy, I think. But anyways, so today I am off from work because today is Juneteenth. It's not the funnest thing in the world because that just means I don't get paid for today. So that's kind of a bummer. But it's just I'm lucky to have what I have. So I definitely want to keep that in check. And yesterday I was saying I thought it was basically the day. That's what I thought it was. Basically is the day that I guess some troops went into Galveston, Texas, and freed what I think a lot of people consider to be the last slaves in America. So it was illegal to have slaves in America, but there were still places that they were having slaves in America, and that was the day. It was 2 years after, more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, and now I believe there were other slaves that were even after that because my understanding is like that was a big part of the Trail of Tears with the Cherokee Nation was that they had a lot of slaves, and they part of that whole process was freeing those slaves too. But so I don't know if that was the last of the slaves. But anyways, here we are. We finished up. We're in our world building phase. This is an idea that I just thought of yesterday, and I was watching my video and I was like, oh yeah, that was a good idea. So right now I'm just in building mode, right? Like I know I had tried to build a ThreeJS viewer sort of builder kind of animation builder thing in the past, and it just sort of architecturally just became almost impossible to maintain, to even make sense of. Everything was all these weird. I mean, the abstractions weren't weird, but the problem is they were inconsistent, and they were inconsistent because I had made a couple of bad assumptions. And one of the main bad assumptions, I think the biggest main and bad assumption was that 3JS, the 3JS state would be a single source of truth for me, and that I would be able to always derive whatever information I needed from the 3JS state. And the problem is that 3JS does not keep the state of everything that I'm interested in. And the one that always, there was a ton of them, but the one that I always remember is like, so in 3JS you have the concept of a camera, and then you have a concept of an object, and you can have the camera looking at the object, and then you can move the camera. Well, when you move the camera, it does not train itself on anything. It actually just moves, and it keeps a straight line. So kind of like if you were like sometimes when you see movies, you'll see like somebody's moving along, and then if you see another shot of it, you'll see that they had the camera on the side and it was moving with them. And that's kind of like how 3JS works. But when I generally would rather have the camera stay trained, like, so as I move the camera, I'd rather rotate around the object in whatever way I want to. And that is just exact opposite of 3JS. And so then that means I had like some information that was, sometimes the 3JS was the state of truth, sometimes I had other information, and then the code just kept getting more and more like gross as time went by. So this time I was just like, okay, I'm going to do a very solid separation. So like it's like I'm world building, and so basically whenever you're world building, and please forgive me if this whole analogy doesn't work because it is fresh. But when you're in the world building stage, probably the very first thing that you're going to focus on is CRUD, and that's create, update, read, and delete. And as part of update, you really need to really come up with a good way of validation. So so that was another thing that just went completely sideways on me. I had like really bizarre validations things. And then what was really, really hard was then I had another layer of validation that was screwed up because I was using Angular reactive forms, and reactive forms has sort of their own little setup for doing validations. And it's really slick and it's great, and it like is deeply tightly coupled with a lot of other features that are absolutely beautiful in forms, you know. But the thing is it doesn't play well outside of Angular forms. So like trying to do actual validation by using the validation that you created for Angular forms doesn't work, but I didn't want to have like a different set of validations. So so that was like the other big key was I was like, okay, every object that I work with will have its own animation definition, will have its own validation definition, and I'll use this concept that um, I learned on ChatGPT called custom aliasing. And basically, so in this example, you know, I'll have a custom alias that describes this cube, and there's a custom alias to the width. There's a custom alias to the height. There's a custom alias to the depth. There's a custom alias to the rotation position, and stuff like that. So, and then as part of that custom aliasing, I would have a validation for it, and or many validations for it, you know. So like that whole world building process is what I'm working on now. And I will say that when I watch movies and stuff, that's my favorite part of the movie is the world building part, or the TV series. It's usually the world building part. um, and so I've spent a lot of time this like literally as part of my world building exercise. I also did unit tests and then also end to end tests. So like world building, I'm spending a lot of time on world building. Now at the end of the year, probably hopefully I'll be done with the main world building process at the end of this year. Um, that's probably when I'll get to really get deeper into actually building features. So I will start to add new types of meshes and things like that. And hopefully, I know as I do that, the world that I created underneath will will support all these new things, and it won't take a whole lot of refactoring of the world to get the new features in. And once I get to a certain level of features, then I will can be at the actual like making cool visualizations. Um, you know, and then you know once we're making cool visualizations, well then like I think almost everybody's interested in cool visualizations. Um, so you know then I think this application can really blow up and become something special. Um, but like that foundational world building is critical. But anyways, I think this is a good time to do a an input. I mean a commit. And as first thing, so this is one of the first commits I think I've had where I didn't update the package. So I think that's probably a smell. That's probably a good smell. That's probably like, oh, okay, we are starting to finally get to the point where, um, like if you look at our packages, like every time I would build a new component or something, or interface or anything, I would capture it in here. And this time there were none, right? And that's probably and I think this may be the first commit that there were no changes in here. So that's probably a very, very good sign that we are starting to get to the beginning of the end of the world building phase. Um, and then, so that's good. I did delete one Cypress test, but and that was just a rename. Um, don't Oh yeah, so it was input and then it became keyboard because it is really more about the keyboard. Now I was very, very disappointed because I don't think there is a way to backwards tab. can forwards tab, but you can't backwards tab. And even it did have a way of backwards tabbing, but the backwards tab in this did not match up to the way it works on the keyboard. Um, so I wanted to make sure that you could do all of this stuff with just a keyboard. You wouldn't need to um, have a mouse. And honestly, the biggest reason for that is because I'm hoping that I'll be able to build some really neat looking vis- uh, Cypress tests in the future that I'll be able to make into videos and put on LinkedIn and stuff like that. Um, but anyways, now as far as like the beginning when I was talking about my career, this is probably the second time where because I had decided, okay, that's it, I'm moving in, I'm leaving IT and I'm going to go into paralegal. I want to become a paralegal and if and try to figure out how I could get myself into law school to become a like a legitimate lawyer. This is sort of the second time that I've sort of gone down. I kind of did the same thing with economists. I wanted to become an economist at one point, and I kind of came to this same conclusion because the thing is IT sort of leads the rest of the economy, and now I'm hearing people saying very similar things to what I was thinking before in other fields. They're all like, "Oh, I need to leave medicine. Oh, I need to leave." Like the only thing I would accomplish by going into paralegal, which I'm actually really glad because I learned a lot in that first paralegal bankruptcy course, which I got a 94 grade in. I learned a lot in there, but and I would love to do like a criminal one or something like that. But the I would just be a paralegal without 30 years of experience. That would be the only difference. I'd be a very good paralegal, just like I'm a very good computer programmer. But the problem is much more, it's much larger than just IT. This is a huge change throughout the entire industry of everything. And as a state working, doing state work and understanding the state problems and how to how to code in the state system and all that is probably literally locked me into probably the well locked is probably overstating it, but it's probably put me into maybe what might be the very last of the traditional jobs. I mean, it just seems like traditional jobs are going to go away um, for a while, you know. And then the thing is things happen so fast now. It could literally just be like a 5 year before suddenly corporations sort of figure out what to do and can go up next. But I think corporations are just way too leveraged and way too like stuck in old ways of thinking. Um, so, anyways, it looks like we deleted a unit test, which makes sense because I think we moved this functionality, this update visualization layout into a service. So that function is just, this function is just gone now. See, app custom layout. See, yeah, we got rid of this function and then we created a service um, that does this stuff. Um, and this is our app custom layout. Um, and then app tabular, we did this. We added these tables and stuff. Um, basically right there is where our new button is going to go. And then this is our new tabular component. So we added a bunch of code. And this is almost identical to the code that's in the custom layout. And I don't know if I want to come up with some kind of very untraditional, unnormal, abnormal scheme for so that like these can be the same component. Maybe I'll want to create like a base component and extend it. But at this point, I don't. We're too early on. I have a feeling that these two are going to diverge over time. And if they do, right now, the only difference between the two is there's no code difference, but there is markup difference and styling difference. Is so it's kind of weird. There's really three parts of a component, right? There's the TypeScript part, there's the markup part, which is typically HTML, and the styling part, which is SCSS in this case. Um, And those three things together make up a component. 99 times out of 100, the type, probably even more than that, the TS side, the brains behind it is very different from component to component. But in this case, the TS side is the only thing, is identical between the two, but the markup and the CSS isn't. And I think if there was going to be like 100 components like this, it would make a lot of sense to make a single base one and extend it. But since there's just two of them, I don't think it's worth the mental overhead of trying to understand this extending a component. I in my current work that I do, we have components extended like that, and so I understand the concept and I can read it. It took me a long time to come up to speed on that, um, but so animation. This is where we ended up uh, testing that same thing that we moved over. And I will, just say it again that right now my only goals are, and I think these goals are good enough, is to have unit tests for everything, have them all passing, and have 100% coverage. I do not want to create unit tests that sort of test the spirit of, actually, you know, get down in the nitty gritty and actually test everything. I just want everything to be tested. And I don't know if that makes sense. So it'd be like I want there to be a spelling test for the kid, but I don't care if they spell their THERE or THEIR. Like I'm not trying to get into the nitty gritty of making sure that they understand every single thing. And that's how my unit tests are. And I guess we've added one function. Yeah. And this was pretty much a lift and shift from the other, um, what was removed from app components. So then this is a shared thing. And yeah, this visual, yeah. So that's it. If viz count, this visualization layout. I think this just updates it or moves it, but oh, it's only 9:30. I'm supposed to go hiking today, so, but that's at 11. But that is it. I think that looks good. So I'm going to commit this, and basically this implements the tabular layout. And this is going to be video 165. Layout. Git push. So that is the next thing. So now, let's see, how long is this video? I know it's only 28 minutes. So now the next step will be to add a button, right, in tabular. So let's come over here and let's go to our tabular layout. Go there and just right here is where we want a button. Now let's just say button, but we aren't going to be able to see it because it's black on black, so we'll just add a font for now. And I like to do this kind of thing. Well, I guess it's not. I guess we want to add a span. I like to do sort of start basic like this because I just like to sort of make sure that I'm grounded in reality. Style. It is very easy. I guess it's not color. White smoke. All right. So we'll click on this. And there's our button. Okay, so now, and I think this is one of the weirdest things okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a button that is a Angular material button. And the way so this is Angular material 20, and they've changed the way the buttons work really dramatically. And then Angular material is very inconsistent in the way that, like, sometimes you update the, and I think you can do everything. Like you can have like a matte button, and then the transpiler will, the IDE will catch that, hey, you haven't imported all the proper things. But then sometimes you can just change like an attribute on an existing button or existing thing, and then the transpiler won't catch it. So you don't really get a consistent developer experience as you move through. But and I have this, and Angular Material is like the perfect foil for artificial intelligence because they just change the way things work really dramatically. So Angular Material, I mean, ChatGPT gives me really bad information all the time when it comes to for Angular Material, um, and that is where ChatGPT really, or even AI, falls apart in general, or not AI, but large language models fall apart because, like, that's the one thing that it's really bad at is maintaining context. It's getting better for sure at maintaining context, but like if I say, like, let's go to ChatGPT and start a new chat. Let's say I have an Angular application and I would like to add a, a button, and I have Angular material installed. Now it should not give me an answer. If you said this to me as a human being and I understand it, I would say, "Oh, what version of Angular do you have?" See, but instead, it doesn't know what version I have, and then it's just going to go with this, and who knows if it's the correct because they've changed the way it works. But let's, this may actually work for me though. So let's try it. So I definitely need to import my Angular material. And see that it just like, well, I guess it didn't. I was going to say it just assumed that I have standalone, but it just gave me both. Which again, like, just to be, like, if we're being completely honest here, um, you better know what you're doing. Like, this is too much information for you to be able to like if you didn't know what even what Angular material was, how in the world would you build this? Um, but I guess what I want to do is put it over here. I'm going to do my import. So this is bringing in all the code for Angular material, or the map for the button. And then I'm going to come over here and I'll put this. And now that there's two of them, I'm going to move this onto two lines. And then, Dakota, stop it. And then, so we had standalone, so I knew that. And then I heard some dude like just saying, I watched a video yesterday on YouTube, and this guy who seemed like he was a really bright guy was like, I spent the last 17 hours trying to fix one small bug and this really cool application that I built with AI. And it was just like, first of all, like if you had a really cool application, I call bullshit right off the top. I didn't put that in. I did make a comment, but I didn't put this in the comment. But I call bullshit because if you had a really cool application, you would have shown us. Um, but he said he built, but he spent 17 hours trying to fix a bug. Um, so it didn't. It missed the fact that I needed to pull in matte icon. Um, do I want to have? Probably, I'll probably want a matte icon. But for now, let's just go ahead and But see how funny that is? Like here we use button, so we're gonna have a different experience than here with Matt icon because now it realized that it did not have the icon um, module. And so like I'm sort of left with two choices here. Like I can come over here and it might make sense to just bring in that. Let's just go ahead. I kind of wanted to not do it. I believe I'm just kind of guessing. I believe this is Matt icon and material icon. And then Matt. So I feel like there's like a 50-50 chance that this is actually going to work. And so what we're expecting to see is a bunch of, oh, let's add our is. So we see our button text. Did I, oh, I probably didn't save this. Didn't save the HTML. Oh, that looks nice. Now it does look different, right? Like it looks different um, than Angular Material 19 buttons, and way different than like Angular 12, Material 12. Like the way these buttons look, but damn, this looks cool. So I think I like that accent one. So I really did enjoy doing this. But I do want an icon too. So let's see if we can move that icon into our accent. I think we can just do. Okay, so I like the accent button. But I would like the icon to be in it. In it. So perfect. I wonder if it does this for everybody. This is how I like to talk to people. I like to be like really positive like that. So let's do this. And I feel like there have been some very subtle changes over time to the way this works. Let's see. Yeah. And then so okay, so let's get rid of all the other ones. Let's hit save. And it's so cool, like that. I think it's called HAR. Like historically, what would happen is it would reload itself, and then I would have to add a new thing so I could get back to this state. But instead, it actually managed to keep the memory, which is like holy sugar. Whoever figured that out was A, probably had to be a tremendous amount of work, and B, like their deep understanding of how memory works and all that stuff must just be like, oof, can't even imagine how smart this person is. Okay, so um, looks nice, but I want the icon to be for deleting. Okay, so I guess we'll do this. Change this to delete. See, I think that spacing thing was an issue when when like with older versions, but as you can see, it is not an issue with this version. But I remember there was a time that like to get these things to line up properly, um, you had to tweak the styling, and now you don't. And if you're working on something and you're trying to figure out how to do something like this, you might have to, you might not. Um, so I can change this color to worn instead of accent. So, okay, so worn did not change the color. The color, um, pretty green color. So it says try this button, matte raised, color worn, matte icon class delete. This did not. Oh wait, matte raised. I don't think we want matte raised though. I think I like the stroked. Let's try it though. Say I don't think. I think it's completely wrong. I don't think that's going to give me a red. Yeah. All it did was get rid of the surrounding stuff. So this is a point where you can just go round and round and round with so I like that worn button. But saying the CPS. So it's saying to update the styling for this one, but I think okay, so let's try this worn. Let's I think this one will work. Let's copy this. It wants me to put this in my SCSS. And the downside to this is that this is only going to be limited to this one component. But I don't want it to be just limited to this one component. It does not look like it worked. Inspect. And what we want to do is we want to look at this one right here. Oh wow, seems to really screw things up when it's small like that. Oh, the add viz was sitting on top of it. So basically, I just want to see if the worn button, if it actually has. So I don't even see that. Oh, maybe that's the problem, is that that thing was still up. There we go. Okay, so it looks like, so it added up, it says Butler button class, and then, so it's like it lost all of its, here, let's do this. It lost all of its styling. See, it has matte worn, MD, and matte worn. So our worn button, um, did I not save it? Maybe I didn't save it. Oh, I did not. Again. Okay, so now I think it probably has the worn button styling, but it's not taking. Yeah, see, did I make? Did I make it warm? Oh, I think. Okay, let's look at see this guy again. I think it wanted me to make the class warm button. Oh, okay, and then it wanted me to get rid of. Okay, so I misread that. So we want this. Inspect. And sometimes these don't quite work with that HAR, so we'll try creating a new one. Nope, it did work. I had too little faith. Okay. Worn. See, I still don't get the worn. I don't see the worn. Oh, there it is, worn button. So if we look down here, what we'll see is that it's overtaken by this MDC outline. So like, that's not good. So I think what we can do is add, and I never ever end with this, like important. Yeah, so now it's delete and then it's weird. It's weird that it didn't. But I feel like it's just too, I don't know, too red. But anyways, so the styles wouldn't, the styles, unless, let's see if it can give me an extra. Actually, I feel like all I would want is, oh yeah, so this I believe is been deprecated for freaking 5 years now. Um, so I'm wondering if that'll work. So let's go ahead and move this to our styles. I don't know if that's going to work. Let's go back to this. Okay, so that's what we thought. And let's see. Slide this over a little more. Slide this over a little bit more. And then we'll go Control P and type in STY, and that gets us to here. So you see we've already made some global styles. And I like this better because then we will be able to use, it will affect all buttons. We'll be able to just say worn button in any component. Now I don't know, okay, so that worked. And see, I don't understand why, like, I definitely work in some places where they do, like, they actually rename the style itself so that this doesn't work. So this may not work for you. It definitely didn't work in certain places. I want to, let's go back to here. Get rid of this. Okay, what is this doing? I don't think this is doing anything. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. nothing changed. And then I think all I want is for the trash can to be red. So let's get ahead and get rid of the border color, but that's probably not going to be enough. And then I think I like the the normal color for the text itself. So we only want to update the icon. So I believe what we can do is we come over here and we can say worn button matte icon. I don't know if that's, yeah, okay, so that's that. That is some harsh red though. Um, but anyways, now I don't know if we still need this important because now, see, this has a higher specificity. This, I believe, gives you a 1. Yeah, selector specificity is a 1. And then I believe this one gives you a 0, 1, 0. So this would have a specificity of 11, which may be enough. Yeah. And that doesn't surprise me. So that makes a lot of sense. I don't. Okay, so that red is so really harsh. Harsh. Red. More subtle. Well, I guess what would be more helpful is if I give it this color. What is this color? Let's go ahead and pop that out. So what I'm trying to figure out is what this color is. What is that color? Okay, so the more subtle red that goes with muted coral. I like the name of it. So we're going to try muted coral. That might be better. I thought I got rid of the important. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, I do think that's better. Did I go too far? Maybe I didn't get rid of the important. Oh no, I did. All right, so if we do an inspect on this now, I think this is worth, like, I swear this is, in a lot of places, has been my bread and butter of, like, the thing that makes me better than, or makes me valuable to the organization is I know how this specificity, which is like weird but easy. Um, so as you see, like this guy right here is being overwritten by this guy. And this guy has a specificity of 11 is what we learned. Because this gives it 10 and then that gives it 1. So then, so it's telling us, it gives us a 0, 1, 1. Or you could call that an 11. And if there was an ID and this was tied to the ID, then it would give it a 111, a 111. Now if we go all the way down here and we look at this guy, see, okay, that doesn't make any sense because this is a 20. So you would think that this would be a higher specificity. Oh, it's only if it's disabled though, which is weird because it's, I don't know. fill current color. Yeah, so that was weird. So I wonder, it's saying if it was disabled, that then it would have, let's see, I think we can click this. And I don't know how to make it disabled. Um, let's see if we can do this. Is this like yeah, so it didn't even affect that. I don't know. But anyways, apparently that is enough. I'm a little worried because it seemed like that other one should be a 2. So let me try this from scratch. So anyways, I think that looks good. And I think next to it we'll have an edit, and I don't understand. Okay, it's because that was up there. So now we're going to want to, the next thing we're going to want, now that this is styled, I think it looks nice. We will want to have like, to wire up a function to this. And see now if we click here, there's nothing there. And if we click this and add viz, close this, go back to tabular, now we can delete. We have a button for each one of them. And that is tied to the app tabular component. So basically when we tie in a button click to this, each one of these will have its own little ID, right? Because an ST renderer has an ST renderer ID. We track by the renderer ID. So setting up a click handler, and I guess I'll just do that so we don't have to spend me coming up to speed. It always takes a little bit, you know, like for my brain to sort of change into that mode. Click and then delete visual item, and then it's going to have we are going to give it the I feel like an ST renderer dot ST renderer. So basically this thing, we want to delete this. Now it's a little upset because it doesn't, oh, I have the renderers because it doesn't exist yet. So it'll die here for a second. But now we can create a new function in our TypeScript. And so I'm adding a boolean, even though I don't need it for this work, but it makes unit tests easier. And then we're going to say return true. And this is our ST renderer ID, which is in fact a number. And all we're going to do is alert ST renderer ID. And just make sure everything's wired up right. So that caused a full refresh. So that's the renderer ID. That's renderer ID 18. It's interesting to think about, like, okay, so 8 different IDs were created when we created a new one of these. That's an interesting little factoid to keep in mind, is that we're creating all kinds of IDs, all kinds of, every one of these rotations has an ID, everything, you know, so we are burning through IDs. um, for 4 of these. And then we can go back to here. We can go to there. That is nice. I like that. Um, our world has gotten a little bit more complete. So that's a good thing. And yeah, so tomorrow we'll actually, or maybe this afternoon, I probably will do another one of these this afternoon. So this afternoon we'll um, make it to where this function actually goes and deletes the renderer. Um, I do not know exactly. I think that's pretty straightforward. I think the renderers, well, I think the, how does it know the renderers at UI service? I think the visualization service, maybe. Somebody here, one of our services, so it's not going to be the animation service. Probably this visualization service. This thing will probably, since it's the one that creates the visualization, it probably should also destroy the visualizations. Um, and I think that as long as we, um, and I think this guy, when he gets destroyed, will automatically delete any reference, but his parent will be gone anyway. So basically, it'll just go through and go through this set of visualizations, and I guess the visualization IDs, and remove itself from both of those. And I think that in it all by itself will be enough to actually delete it. Now I don't know if we'll probably need to do a signal. So when we create one, we'll probably need to reset the hash at that point so that it can redraw things. I know that I didn't want it to redraw, like let's say, like so in this, so these positions here only matter in this view. If I delete this one, I think I still want that one to stay there because there's no way for me to, well, it's not no way, but it's going to be a lot of extra code and all that to figure out, has the user manually moved this or whatever. So once something's been placed in a place, that's where it stays. And then you can move it around. We haven't added that, but when you're editing, that'll be one of the things you can do is you can move these around. But yeah, so yeah, we'll start the delete process, and then yeah, delete might end up being very simple. Um, and then for now, I think what'll happen is, well, so we're gonna have to add a little bit more intelligence to the set calculated position to see if. So right now, what we do is we just manually count. Like, so if I delete this one, and I add a new one, it's gonna count out 3 spots and it's going to put the new one there, and maybe it shouldn't. Maybe it shouldn't. Maybe it should. It probably should figure out what well, no, I think what it does, yeah, actually, I think what it does is it figures out what the last what position was, and it adds to it. So actually, that'll work because it'll put the new one there. So that'll be good. But anyways, that is that. I think it looks good. I like how that looks right there. And I think that makes a lot of sense to click this and it will delete that one. And we'll have to spend a bit of extra time sort of doing just a basic analysis just to make sure that we aren't creating a memory leak, because it would be really easy to create a memory leak at this point. I don't think we have to worry about that. I do think that if we just delete the top one, that's all of, well, maybe not. And not only that, but I don't want, so like, I do want the concept of these things sharing things. And if they share things and I delete one, I don't want all of the shared, like a shared resource to be deleted. So For example, I definitely want the possibility of having, like, I'm looking at this thing and then I'm looking at the exact same one but with a different camera. So if I delete the one and something else is using it, I don't want to delete the other one that's looking at the same thing. You know, it's the same mesh. This is a mesh, and then there's a camera looking at it, and a visualization is the mesh and the camera. So, but I think if they're all gone, if there's nothing actually looking at that mesh, I don't know. This is going to get complicated because I definitely know that when we add the edit, I want to add the ability to go look at um, like individual meshes that already exist, and if you delete them, you know, and be able to reuse meshes and stuff like that. I'm hoping to be able to do that. So I guess, yeah, that there's a lot of unknown. Things are very obscured from us at this point. So, but it is getting real now. We can delete, or we're getting out. We're almost to where we can delete. So that is cool. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye.